The world at work is changing rapidly, and here is another example. This story from Business Insider, the headline got my attention, and this is fascinating. I'm going to break this down. This is a new and a little bit more chaotic version of what has been happening on Wall Street. And it's literally like, think of college football and college basketball recruiting. If you're a sports fan, you read about this all the time, right? Where we see cutthroat recruiting going on and competing and signing days. And now signing days have their own television day, and it's, message boards and fans and all this kind of stuff. They're all worked up all the time about the new recruits for their schools, football, or basketball team. Well, this is happening on Wall Street. And they're calling it chaos. This headline from Business Insider, chaos engulfs Wall Street as private equity recruiting begins for 2024. 2023 and 2024. Now, these jobs aren't even open yet, but they're recruiting for them. So here's the ritual. I didn't know about this, but annually, I guess there is a ritual of private equity firms on Wall Street starting the recruiting process for jobs that are going to come up in the future. And I guess the way it goes is they reach out to you and they go, hey, we want to talk to you. We're interested in you. You got to come over now. It's like middle of the night this is happening. Well, I guess it recently kicked off. And so it's here's an example. Megafund KKR, a current employee of that company, confessed to Insider that a junior banker was ensconced in a conference room on Tuesday morning, juggling his actual day job on their laptop while awaiting interviewers to come and talk to them. The day before, in a similar situation, those meetings, interviews, did not end until 2 a.m. So you've got a junior banker who really wants to make it, right, in these equity firms. And so they're in there and they're sitting there waiting for their next interview, and it's a grueling process, and they're trying to do their job while getting interviewed. Another investment banker who requested anonymity to Business Insider said that he heard at another elite boutique bank on Wall Street that several analysts mysteriously disappeared for a few hours before showing back up at the office, triumphantly telling people they had gotten job offers. Now, one industry headhunter told Insider that this is now ludicrous, that this is an unprecedentedly early timeline, as you've got first-year investment bankers juggling their first few weeks on the job while seeking out their second job. Experts worry that the increasingly frenetic recruiting cycle isn't to anyone's benefit because it's forcing young junior bankers and analysts with little to no experience to participate in this recruiting process and choose their next job. And they don't even know if they like it. They don't even know if they can hack it. I share that concern. Give you an example. I mean, this is literally like taking somebody who's been a great performer and without asking them at all if they're interested in a leadership position, kind of seeing where they are as it relates to their leadership ability and what needs to be developed. But you just immediately go, you know what? You're a high performer. Boom. I'm putting you and literally throwing you to the dogs in a leadership role before you're able to handle it. Meaning you're not able to handle it because you don't know if you love it enough to want to be good at it. Number two, you might not be prepared, and we could stunt your growth or burn you out on a leadership position, all because we put you in too soon. Well, that's what's going on. Investment giants from KKR, as I mentioned moments ago, to Apollo, have now started meeting with freshman bankers. They're even calling them freshmen, like football players, right? And the process is out of control. Two people, the current KKR employee and Asif Rahman, founder of Office Hours, a career coaching organization that works with investment banking and private equity hopefuls, said that a first-year investment banker participating in this year's recruiting process have little to no professional experience. As a result, interviewers have been relying largely on theoretical questions to decide if the candidate has an understanding of the work. But there is a race for talent. And it's this is such a bad move for corporations. Because what happens is they've forgotten what's really going on, which is we're trying to get really good people. Well, now it's become about the competition of getting people. Now, let me break that down. Their desire ultimately is to get good people or the right people. But by, they're literally turning this into the same environment that you see with college coaches. And if you're not a football or basketball fan, let me paint the picture for you. Over the last several years, you have seen major football programs. Alabama, Nick Saban, Joe Hankins' beloved program. Lane Kiffin out of Ole Miss. We've seen stories where they've offered full ride scholarships to ninth graders. Now, in a football context, that's a big risk too for the kid. Kid might take that, and it may not be the right place for them. They may end up topping out in the 10th, 11th grade and not be that good, and then a school will drop them. Well, now private equity firms are doing the same thing. They're going after freshman bankers who've not been in it more than a month or two. And they're putting pressure on these kids to make a decision that may not be right for them. But here's the real risk. For companies, they think, well, if it doesn't work out, we'll go to the next crop. But what happens is your entire process becomes about wooing instead of preparing and selecting the right person. It's all about, we're going to woo this hot shot, and they don't have any experience, and they're going to churn through these kids. So there's risk on both sides. There's risk for these young bankers, women and men, to make a choice that could end up stunting their career and almost throwing it off the rails, if not completely throwing it off the rails. Taking this pressure position as a second-year banker. Folks, these private equity, let me say, you want to talk about cutthroat. This is cutthroat. They're playing for keeps, folks. We're talking big money, stock prices. We're talking about performance stuff. And they will put you in a wood chipper and chew you up, because if you don't work, guess what they're going to do? They're going to fire your butt, and they're going to go for the next crop. It's a churn and burn. And I bring this up because I just think you're going to see more corporations doing this because of what we've seen come out of the pandemic. I think this is going to continue to happen, not just for Wall Street, but I think this is going to trickle down into corporate America outside of the Wall Street movement, where the recruiting game, and I think it's already happening. I just don't think you're seeing many stories about it. But I think because of the need for talent and this big talent gap, companies are going to start going, it's going to turn into big-time college football and big-time college basketball, where they're out there trying to recruit talent, and they will only look at certain figures, right? So you look at football and basketball, they're looking at height, speed, weight, all those things. Oh, they're a 5-star. I've seen 3-star athletes outperform 5-star athletes all the time on the field and on the court. Why? Because there's so much more to an athlete, and there's so much more to working talent, professional men and women, than the glamour stats, where you went to school, how you score well on this theoretical test we're going to have you take. See, you got to actually interview somebody, and you got to walk with them. You got to dive in. You got to give them some rope and develop them and train them and coach them, just like a really good coach would do. Well, corporate America, the temptation is going to be, let's just win the recruiting battle and hope it works. But here's the problem for those of you that get caught up in that. If you don't work out pretty quickly, guess what they're going to do? They're going to drop you like a bad habit. I promise you.